feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Day More NBA podcast, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Saturday afternoon. It's December 20th, and we are mixing in a weekend episode so we can talk about the Wolves win over the Oklahoma City Thunder on Friday night. It was Oklahoma City's third loss of the season. And I don't know if it was a must win for the Wolves, but I think at least for me, it felt like a game the Wolves needed, a game they needed because, I don't know, this team felt like they needed to remind themselves of the level that they can get to. They entered the game 17-10, good record, but only 2 of those 17 wins had come against teams with winning records. The Wolves, for a long time, have been a team in the Anthony Edwards era that has shown an ability to level up against the highest competition. You just look at the playoffs year after year since Ant has been here. But this season, this team has not done that. 2 losses to Denver, 2 losses to the Lakers, got blown out by the Knicks, lost to Oklahoma City earlier in the year, and even lost to Phoenix twice. While I think it would be reasonable to lose to the 25-2 Oklahoma City Thunder, I felt like they needed this. I felt like they needed a win like this before like the calendar turned to 2026. If they were again, going to this season be a team that was moving down the road of being a contender, moving down a team that could get back to the level that they've been the last two seasons. And I think that's why Chris Finch completely blew a gasket and got ejected 5 minutes into this game. And I think that's why Anthony Edwards played the right way throughout this game and then leveled up at the end of the game on both sides of the floor in ways that only he can do. There's a lot more to get into this game than the way it started with the Finch ejection and the way that it closed with Ant's heroics. And Kyle and I are going to get into that today. But if you've been watching this team all season, you know the Wolves needed that from Finch at the beginning of the game and that they needed what they got from Ant at the end of the game. Let's break it all down. I got Kyle Theige here with me. What's up, Kyle?
Good morning. Thank you for letting me push this back a little bit. I had therapy this morning, which is 8:30 a.m. rec league basketball. And then you and I had a little therapy session here talking about fantasy football. So I think Dane might be on a heater more than I am on this one. But I'll just kick it off because you and I have been doing this now for about a decade, covering this team. And we both have, our favorite types of pizza. We both have favorite things in basketball. And one of my favorite things is I really have always thought that when your team sometimes just needs a jolt, I want the coach to get ejected, right? And I hope that ownership behind the scenes is like, we'll cover the fines or whatever. But this was only the second time in the Chris Finch tenure that he's been ejected. And I think this is such a hot take to start it off with, but I think if he doesn't get ejected, I don't know if they win that game. And I'm biased because he's one of my best friends in all of this. But on the way to basketball today, I just texted Jim Pete and I was like, hey, you played at the highest level. You're in the finals. You coached at the highest level. Does that work? Does it work for a coach to do that? And before it even said delivered, he fired back 100%. It's a tactic. And he goes, let me just say that if a coach is passive when the referees are really kind of screwing over his team, the players notice that and they'll remember that. And I thought last night, I think Chris Finch has been under the microscope more than ever this season and probably deservedly so. Rotations, end of game stuff. But he knew exactly what he was doing last night. You go back and watch the film, like the Zapruder film. He had multiple opportunities to walk away, right? He knew he was getting one. If you're a conspiracy theorist, right? Was Chris Finch on December 19th, setting this up for when Oklahoma City plays playoff games in April and May? Because locally, maybe Chris Finch's Q rating, approval rating was kind of low the last couple of weeks and months. But as you pointed out last night, it's never been higher, and it's never been higher around the league. I've never seen more media members and players and fans be like, I love that guy. He stood up for all 29 other teams. But I really do believe that, I don't know if he woke up yesterday after going to that Wild game and being like, hey, I'm getting ejected in the first quarter. But I think he knew a couple minutes in, if I don't stand up for my guys, we don't really have a chance. And you saw his team respond, I think, in a really important way. And to your point, I didn't love Naz Reid calling it a must win in December, but I think they really just needed that because it kind of cleansed all of the talk about this record against bad teams, this record against good teams. Oklahoma City, like them or not, and a lot of people hate them, is historically good. And I know it was the second night of a back-to-back, but they came out firing, and the Wolves took every punch, and then in that fourth quarter closed it out and knocked them out.
Yeah, got the initial tech, and then to Zapruder, it took about 4 or 5 steps away. Gears start turning, and then he planted that busted right knee and turned around and came back and had to basically jump over Pablo Prigioni to let Courtney Kirkland know what he thought there. I'm glad you brought up the gym piece, because I was talking to some people in the media room afterwards. I'm like, I wonder what that does feel like. I wonder how much that does inspire. Because you kind of look like it wasn't like immediately the Wolves went on a run as soon as Finch got ejected. Like the rest of that first quarter, the Thunder kept playing well. But I think to dismiss that didn't have anything to do with the rest of the game would be totally wrong. And to the Q score point and the fan point, I mean, I've been at just about every game this season at Target Center, and it made a difference within the arena, and it made a difference every time the whistle was called for the rest of the game. So that undoubtedly impacted the environment in Target Center, and many of the players talked after the game about the environment and the way that all played in. And Mike Inori, when we talked to him after the game, we'll start with this. He thought it did fire up the group. Here's Mike Inori.
I know Coach Finch didn't want to get kicked out right there, but that really got us going. And he's talking about first quarter we started slow. We didn't think he'd have to take it to that extreme to get us going, but it really did. That really, obviously everybody rallied around Coach Finch. And the one great thing about us being together for the last 5 years, nothing changes. I mean, we're calling the same plays. Pablo's doing his thing. T's doing his thing at the defensive end, and we're all just an extension of Coach Finch. So the game plan didn't change. Nothing. We didn't run any new plays or anything like that. So it was just, again, it was business as usual, and I was really proud of the guys.
Do you have any further thoughts on that, or maybe Micah specific things of the way he kind of steered the ship after Finch left?
I mean, I think just big picture, again, talking to Jim or just thinking back to other coaches, we watch a lot of Warriors games historically because they've always been really good. And it is those nights when maybe Draymond, who I know we don't all love either, but when Draymond's at his hottest, that Steve Kerr's kind of at his hottest. Because again, like, if you're not sticking up for your guys, you're not going to last very long in this league. And being around this, you're at all these games. But I think Chris Finch is as loud of a complainer, like high level complaining, as anyone. I don't think he has a good relationship with the officials. And ironically, as we're talking about him getting ejected last night against the Thunder, you got to harken back to Wednesday when he didn't get ejected and he was ready to literally, Netflix boxing match Zach Zarba. Like I thought he should have got ejected on Wednesday because a lot of those bad words were coming through the screen listening to that game. And there is a fine line here, to be honest. Like, sometimes I think his hatred for the officials, like we always joke, you walk into the locker room, home or away, and right when you walk in, there's a picture of all the officials and like a little scouting report on each of the officials for that night. Yeah. And I think sometimes that does leak over into a team that, you've done 3 pods this week. Every pod you did, you were the guest talked about this team being moody. And I think sometimes, if dad's always pissed off, it does kind of leak over to the kids. But last night, I thought for the most part, the kids were complaining for the first 6 minutes. And dad was like, enough. I'm going to stand up. You guys play basketball. And it did. It didn't immediately. I mean, they lost the first quarter by they outscored by 10. But I think it started to settle in. Micah was pretty reserved. He got a couple good challenges and stuff. But I think he just kind of let the energy of what Finch did resonate with those guys. And again, there was a lot of good basketball stuff, and we should talk about some of that. But I really do believe that of all the nights, like last night, do they win that Grizzlies game on Wednesday if they have a different coach? Maybe, right? I am kind of also losing patience sometimes with the gotta word this correctly, like the post game clarity that these players and the coach have all the time. Like, oh, I should have done this better. It's like the game ended 6 minutes ago. Couldn't you have done that in the game? But last night, I don't think they win that game if they have any other coach but Chris Finch, because I think that ejection at home specifically turned that place into, a crazy place. The players played really engaged and connected. And to your point at the top, it was a really big win that I think just kind of cleanses everyone's palate and allows you now to like, okay, the second, chapter of this season starts now. And what can we do with this?
How they won the game. Well, it happened throughout the entirety of the game, but Anthony Edwards finished it, and put that final nail in there. And so it's jumped from the beginning of the game, or maybe the first 5 minutes of the game, to the final 5 minutes of the game. And specifically, we'll start with Ant's final shot, which was then followed up with the block and rebound on the defensive side of the floor. This all happens within the last 40 seconds of the game. The step back three, the block, the rebound, and then the subsequent Thunder possession, getting the steal from Shea. It was one of those superhero Ant performances, and doing it after coming back from having played a game in 10 days or something like that. Huge shot. And I really like that his superhero-ness showed up on both sides of the floor, because I think they needed that to win that game last night. But let's start with what Ant had to say about that final shot.
Oh yeah, I went passing the ball. I knew it was going up. When it left my hand, I knew it was going in. And he played great defense. It was a tough shot, but I probably shoot that shot 1,000 times in a week when I'm in the gym. So it felt like a natural shot.
What'd you make the shot, Kyle?
I knew it was going up no matter who or how many guys were defending him, because 2 possessions earlier, I don't think he loved being waved off by Dante DiVincenzo, who took a mid-range shot to try to win the game. So, on the end of game stuff in general, I don't want to sound like a wet blanket, because, dude, that's one of the coolest highlights of the season, to get Case and Wallace off of him, who is a really good defender, and then hit that step back three, a shot that, as he said, he takes 1,000 times a week or whatever. But it's the block, and then it's just the mano-a-mano defending against the MVP and just, stealing his cookies to ice the game. That, I think a couple of weeks ago, Jace Frederick took a lot of heat for being like, are you playing like an MVP? And that's MVP stuff, right? Like two-way. You're not going to be able to finish at the rim. You're not going to be able to get a 3 off. When he locks in like that at 24 years old, I don't know how many players are better than him. And they needed it last night on both sides. The shot was incredible. I mean, they were down 2, so there was a lot of different ways, and they didn't really have, this is a joke, but like Finch was probably having a beer in the back, so he wasn't calling the late game stuff, and the late game stuff didn't get any better. It was still kind of just a lot of isolation, but the shot was huge. But it was the block and then the subsequent steal that I was like, you're just kind of thankful sometimes that guy's on your side, because that was winning MVP level stuff against one of the best, if not the best guy to do it in isolation in the league. And they needed all of it. And it was, the last time Ant came back from an injury was that Knicks game, and it was very underwhelming. And last night, he started slow. I thought he got hurt again in that first minute, where he was kind of like, Grady said his gait was weird, but he just turned it on. And those final 5 minutes, it was like, that's about as good as you can get from a 24-year-old.
I think it also progressed over the course of the game. Ant's game individually,
for sure.
It was not a strong first half. It was, as we knew coming into an Oklahoma City matchup, that Ant and Julius were not going to have their typical one-on-one isolation advantages that they have, given how good Oklahoma City's individual defenders and team defenders are. I can't remember a team who defends isolation better than this team does. And that makes it so, if you are Anthony Edwards, if you are Julius Randle, and if you are the group, like it's not a night that you can just play and be rely on talent alone. You needed to be meticulous. You needed to make the right plays more often than you make the wrong plays, because we know what the alternative is. We know exactly what the alternative is against this Oklahoma City team. When you are not consistently making the right play, they will turn you over into hell, and you will lose. They will go on a run, and you will lose the game. And none of those. I don't know, man. I was watching their game on Thursday night against the Clippers, and there might have been 3 separate pockets in that game against the Clippers. Again, not a high bar, the Clippers, but still an NBA team where they just would get a turnover like 4 possessions in a row and go score. Turnover, score, turnover, score, turnover, score. And it would just happen. It happened numerous times throughout. I think they forced 30 turnovers against the Clippers there. There was not one of those pockets in this game. I mean, the Wolves had some turnovers, and Julius took some bad shots at times, or not the best ones that they could get. But that's one of the most important things against this Oklahoma City team, is not only to like win the possession battle, but to avoid them going on a defensive heater. It is like the same as that's what's special about them. Like they can go on defensive heaters in the ways that, Luka or Giannis or Jokic or Ant can go on these offensive heaters. And the Wolves avoided that. And I give Ant a lot of credit for being able to handle that. And I thought he progressively handled it better and better over the course of the game. I use the analogy of a test a lot with Ant, and over the course of his career, he's gathered the answers for the test to all the different tests he can get, the different coverages, the different styles that teams approach him. But you got to answer those questions on the fly during the course of the game. He knows all the answers. He's getting better at answering those questions on the fly over the course of the game. And it wasn't a perfect game from him or anything, but I appreciated the way that it improved. I thought his individual play improved kind of linearly over the course of that game. And then you got the exponential burst at the end, that final minute with what he did there. So yeah, it's a strong testament or a strong vote of confidence that Ant is one of those guys that does deserve to be in that conversation of the, MVP candidates in this league, because he can not only get to that level, he is capable of playing a star level game for 48 minutes. What's going to get him an MVP someday is when he does that consistently night over night. But he's got that gear. And yeah, to do it against the Thunder is impressive.
And again, the 3 was so nasty, so I don't want to downgrade that shot. It was the play that led SportsCenter, right? But the stat, when you look at the box score the next morning, that sticks out the most is the 12 rebounds, And I know Micah Nori after the game kind of joked about how Ant struggles. I mean, that's another cool thing about this coaching staff in general, is they'll kind of let their guys have it both privately and publicly. But Micah said after the game, Ant struggles to box out a lot of times. So if he wants the ball, just go get it. And he got 12 rebounds last night, including there was one late in the game again that, in addition to the 3 steals and the 2 blocks that he finished with, it was this huge rebound. I was like, I'm just going to go get the ball. I'm one of the best athletes on the court, if not in the league. So it's all the other stuff, right? Because that any night that he steps on the court, he can give you 40, but they don't always need 40. Like last night, they only needed 26. He didn't even shoot it that well, 9 from 20 or whatever. He did get to the line 6 times. One of the few guys that actually made free throws, which maybe we can talk about that. But it was the other stuff. And to me, it's the other stuff that the MVP guys do, right? The Shays, the Lukas, the Jokic's, the Giannis's. And that was probably, for this season at least, in the biggest spot, albeit 2 months into the season. That was the biggest game of the season. And I thought he played his best coming off, an injury where you didn't really know what to expect in that first game back.
Let's take a quick break. Today's show is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. And for Christmas Day or New Year's Eve, I want you to put Falling Knife on your radar. On Christmas Day, the tap room will be open. The Wolves are playing that night. I think it's the late game that evening. So if you've opened up presents and you've done all the stuff at home during the day and you want to, go out for some good beer with the family, the tap room will be open Wolves Nuggets will be going on there. So consider doing that. Consider supporting our longtime sponsor, Falling Knife, by getting out there. And then also on New Year's Eve, as I've been telling you all about, they throw a New Year's Eve party. It's called New Year's Early. And they start the party at 6, do the ball drop at 8, and the night's over by 10. So you can get home and get an appropriately priced Uber back home. $90 ticketed event, but it's all you can drink and all you can eat. All you can eat food from Rectangle, and obviously all you can drink Falling Knife beer. The link for tickets to that is in the show notes there. But in these next, I guess, final 2 weeks of December here, I mean, any of these game nights is a fun night to go to Falling Knife, but I'd recommend Christmas Day or New Year's Eve if you're looking for something to do there. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. I've been saying this all week, but if you got knocked out of your fantasy football playoffs, Prize Picks is a way to keep playing fantasy football throughout the rest of the regular season and the playoffs. If that's part of your routine is on Sunday sitting around watching football, and watching your fantasy team, this is another way to do it. You can play for $5, whatever it might be, and you just pick more or less on a line of statistics for a handful of players. The more players you put in your lineup, and the more of those hit, the more you make. All you need to do is put 2 or more players in your lineup to win. And if you do not yet have a Prize Picks account, want to try it out maybe for the NFL playoffs here or for NBA games, they got all the different sports. Sign up using the promo code Dane and you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code Dane. Yes, Kyle.
I want to give you one more thing because we talk about this a lot behind the scenes and stuff, but and I don't think I'm disobeying anyone's trust, but as we move forward in life and in professional sports, I do feel like just everyone is kind of buddy. And one of the things I liked about last night was that those two teams actually do not like each other. And Chris Finch hates OKC. Like, that wasn't just a reaction last night to any team. That man does not like the Thunder. And I think that's what kind of makes, it's probably not a rivalry in the Thunder's eyes until the Wolves beat them at a real spot. Like, kind of like Wolves Nuggets, right? The Nuggets won a title, but it wasn't really a rivalry until the Wolves stole Game 7. It was like, we got you back. But it was just, I was remembered last night because someone tweeted it out of what Chris Finch said that the game they won in the Western Conference Finals, when he was like, they foul all the time and you can't touch Shea. Like, that man just does not like the unethical way that they play basketball. And I thought it was cool last night for him to put it on Amazon Prime so everyone could see it, because I like when teams don't like each other. I think sometimes that hatred or that animosity makes for really good competition. And I just wanted to bring that up because I know if Chris Finch had to rank his favorite teams, I don't think OKC would be in the top 28.
Yeah, no. And like you said before, I don't think he's alone in that. I think I think it transcends the foul baiting stuff. Yeah. And the dominance of them. I mean, I think there's as great as Sam Presti has been as a general manager, objectively, right? Like, not the most popular dude when you talk to other general managers around the league about it. So, which again, that's cool too. That's almost just cool from an Oklahoma City standpoint of, like, if you were an Oklahoma City fan, you'd be like, it's kind of cool that everybody hates us too. But I agree with that. And yeah, it does seem like in today's day and age, there is more of the buddy cop relationship between players and stuff like that. It's good. It's good when there's the competition. And then I think between Ant and Shea in particular, sure. I think there's a healthy respect of, like, neither of those guys think the other isn't also an elite player in the NBA. It's an interesting rivalry developing but between these two teams.
And it's not a rivalry until, both sides win stuff. And OKC's won a lot of it. And again, last night was a regular season game in December, but for them to get that win at this stage was big. And not only was it Ant, I think maybe this segues into what you want to talk about now, but I thought there was some other stuff. Can I play
the Ant clip on OKC being the best team? I mean, I think this just kind of brings
for sure.
Home.
I mean, it's one game. And they coming off a back-to-back, so it's like, everything was in our favor. But we know they the best team in the league. I think we got to play them again, I think. So maybe we play them again and it goes this way, then we can be able to say a little bit. But right now, they still got everybody number.
Yeah, I like that too, man. I like him. I like him saying that. I mean, that isn't him questioning the Wolves' ability. That's him, looking at what it is. Like you can't, like you said, like you could talk when you knock them out. They beat them, and that's absolutely not nothing. But Ant said things along those lines multiple times in his post game media session there, and a little bit of a tactic. But I think he also believes there's truth to that too. And I mean, the Thunder were 25-2 coming in that game, still 25-3. Like the league still goes through Oklahoma City. But like you said, we can beat them again, or somebody else can beat them again. We don't got to crown this Thunder team right now. They have not won this season's NBA championship. They can be whatever in 2 or whatever in 3. Like, the drill. Like you gotta go win it in the playoffs. There's 6 months left of this NBA season. There's a lot of time left.
It did feel my favorite movie is 300. It did feel like that moment in 300 where he throws the spear and he just clips him. The god, 8 foot looks like Jason Taylor standing on that thing. But he just clips him and draws blood, and it shows that he's like a real human being that can bleed. I thought last night showed that, OKC can bleed. And I will just say one thing, because after the game I was petty and I was like, does that count as a good win? And I had some people be like, well, OKC second night of a back-to-back. And I don't know why we don't keep the same energy when the Wolves lost to the Nuggets on the second night of a back-to-back. It was like, oh, it doesn't matter. The Wolves lost at home. But then last night it was okay for OKC. So just keep that same energy. But regardless, you play who shows up to your court. And last night, Ant and Finch. And then I also kind of think Mike and Nori pulling some strings late in the game. It was a big win. So good job. Good job, team.
I would like to spend some more time talking about the end of the game outside of that last Ant minute. I thought the whole clutch time, right, the final 5 minutes of the game was obviously a very important stretch of the game, something the Wolves have struggled with historically and have struggled with this season. I'm going to play this Dante DiVincenzo clip, but I feel like this team has been trying to figure out a balance between that quick decision basketball, playing off of each other through the flow, and also relying on isolation performances from their 2 best players. That is the identity of this team, is both of those things. The coach wants them to play the quick decision-making basketball style, and he also is aware that they have Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, 2 of the best isolation players in the entire league. And those things are tricky to mesh together. And I just was with Dante, I'll play this clip, but like I remember Dante even last season being like, yeah, we need to mix these 2 things together. We need to mix these 2 things together of quick decision while also playing through these guys. And he phrased it differently tonight about how they need to approach offense over the course, or last night, how they need to approach offense over the course of the game and at the end of games. And he distinguished between the 2 of them. So play that clip there. But I think it's a signal to me of this team beginning to figure out that style piece of who they are in addition to their identity. Here's DiVincenzo.
Out there next to him, like, are you anticipating him to be able to elevate in those times of the game?
Yeah. Playing the right way, playing fast, playing quick decision basketball for 3.5 quarters, and then put the ball in his hands and he brings you home. That's a perfect recipe for us, because everybody else in the building, they can't react, they can't overload on him, and he made the right play the entire game. So credit to him because when you're out and you're watching it. I was out last year. Julius was out last year. We came back and you see the game differently. And I think that's what happened for him. He just sees it differently and being aggressive. And he's an MVP candidate for a reason. Like at the end of the day, we're gonna put the ball in his hands and we're gonna ask him to bring us home. And that's exactly what he did tonight.
You get what I'm saying there? Like that's a shift. That's a shift. He said, let's play 3.5 quarters that way. And then when the game's on the line, shifting into, letting Ant kind of take them home. I'm not even saying that's necessarily right. I think you could make a case of like maybe by shifting style so dramatically, 3.5 quarters, and then shifting it for the very end of the game could be disjointed. I think that's part of the reason why this team has kind of struggled in clutch time. But my point is, I think they've figured out this is what they want to do and are stripping down some of the ambiguity of how they want to approach it. And I think we're seeing that not only with Anthony Edwards, but we're seeing it in who is closing the games. And Julius Randle being out there and Naz Reid in the front court and not always Rudy Gobert being out there. I think this team is fundamentally shifting the way they want to approach offense specifically in over the course of the game, but specifically in fourth quarters. And I'm gonna keep that in my mind after this game and see how much that sustains.
He said a lot of things, so I think we should try to dissect most of those. Because the big one to me was the last thing I brought up when we recorded on Tuesday or Wednesday was when Julius was out, the big story of last season was Julius was out with an injury. He learned how to fit in. And when Dante was out, he learned how to fit in. And those are two guys that were coming from a different team and like, how do I make this work, right? For Ant, this has always been his team. And this has been the most amount of games in a short period of time that he's kind of missed. And for the most part, the team played pretty good basketball and free flowing and removing it and all that stuff without him. And the question was, how is it going to be when he comes back? And I thought, to Dante's point, like, I think Britt Robson's the smartest guy you have on this pod, but even he was like, I just love the free flowing, keep it moving. That's just not how the final 6 minutes of NBA basketball goes. I mean, even the Thunder, who play pretty much perfect basketball, in the clutch, it does become Shea versus his opponent, spread the floor, let him cook. And I thought Dante just summed it up so well of like, if we can 3.5 quarters play exactly how coach wants us to play and get everyone involved and keep them engaged, and then at the end of the game, let 5 take us home. That's what they did last night. And one game, right? I mean, that's the one thing I do want to wet blanket this team has always gotten up for the best opponents. And maybe that's why the cupcake schedule kind of messed everyone up, including us. And maybe we'll see more of that now. I mean, it is, I joke, but it's going to feel like swallowing in an ice scraper if they lose to the Bucks without Giannis on Sunday. But after that, you get the Knicks and you get the Nuggets on Christmas. Like, you get some good teams. And if they can play that style of ball or that strategy, 3.5 quarters, everyone's engaged. And then down the stretch, it's either Ant or maybe Julius getting to the line. That's a good winning formula for a team that has so much offensive firepower, but can also lock up anyone really defensively in a single possession.
Yeah, let's talk about Julius coming into the game, and he did get to the line shortly after he checked in. There's 3 minutes left in the game, and Mike Conori opted to go with Julius Randle instead of Rudy Gobert. Again, 3 minutes left in the game. I, in the moment, was kind of going, I don't know about that, because I do think not just in that game last night, but recently Rudy Gobert has been helpful on both the offensive side and the defensive side of the floor. But what they ended up doing was kind of going offense, defense with it. Randle comes in with 3 minutes to go. The first offensive possession, which is what kind of made me go, was nobody sets a screen. And it just, it was just a flat, remember? It was just like a flat offensive possession, and the Thunder get the ball and they go down on the other side, shoot and miss and get an offensive rebound. And now I'm turning to Britt and I'm like, what the, like,
I know I was yelling fire Finch at the TV and he wasn't even on the bench.
Right. But then with 2:11 to go, it felt like a lot more than 49 seconds to me. Randle got to the free throw line, hit 2 big free throws, and the following possession, Randle did find Nas for a nice little dime underneath the bucket there. And then Nori goes back to Rudy for Nas with 53 seconds left in the game. And it's subbing him in for defense, but the Wolves are shooting free throws. So Rudy's down there to pursue the offensive rebound. He gets the tap out, goes to Dante, swing to Ant. Ant takes a step back 3 that he hits in Case and Wallace's face there. So I thought it was I think it's just a tricky thing, like you could come on here if it didn't work and be like, why didn't they do that? Or you could come on here and it did work and say, this was the right thing to do. I do think it's a tricky set of circumstances that they have to navigate playing 2 of Julius, Nas, and Rudy at the end of games. But it did work out in this game. I want to play. I asked Nori about it after the game. And then you kind of went back and forth between Randle and Gobert at the end of the game. How tricky is that to kind of know what button you want to push in those spots?
Yeah, I think that actually it was Kevin Hansen late in game, and we struggled to score down there. When we got a little, we struggled to score for the most part all night, but we had that little bit of stretch where I think we were up 6 and they kind of closed it, and just to switch up the matchups and then I think when we put Julius in, then they put in Holmgren. And then what that happened was it kind of got Nas loose a little bit on the one bucket that he made. So it's very difficult every night just because we have a luxury of those 3 guys being awfully good. And then in time you even see us trying to play all 3 of them. So tonight, again, that was Kevin Hansen said, hey, what do you think about going Julius back here just to kind of see what happens to get us a little bit of an offensive look. And then it worked out. And then we put Rudy back in late for defense. And, he gets the kick out on the offensive rebound.
So I think even the Chet piece he mentioned about that, and Oklahoma City was kind of scrambling with matchups over the course of the game there. But I just want, your general thoughts on that first.
No, you broke that down really well. I was kind of coming at it from, it was 3:28 left in the 4th, and this then feeds into what you're talking about. But it was 3:28 left, and it was 100-100, and then the Wolves go on to outscore OKC 12-7 in those final 3.5 minutes. But 7 of their points were free throws. And again, this is so crazy because in the moment, I don't know how you felt watching the game in person, but like I was just telling myself, like, this isn't a good Julius game because I think I was so focused on that he was 3 for 15. But he got to the free throw line 16 times, had 8 rebounds, 5 of them offensive and 5 assists. It was kind of a good Julius Randle game. I just in the moment wasn't feeling it because I saw him miss all these shots. But to me, that balance, like you said, of they have 3 bigs that can close, and that's kind of putting Jaden back on the perimeter as a wing, and that how do you walk that fine line? I don't think Finch all the time does a good enough job. But again, this is me sitting on my couch of like offense to defense. Like, I don't know how you can always do that, but if you have the ability sometimes to switch personnel, I do think that makes it harder for the opponent to kind of figure out. But Julius Randle, to me, I don't know if it's just style of play, but there's a little Derrick Henry 4th quarter in a cold December game where it's just like, I just love when Julius gets the ball and just goes, right? Because the offense was still stagnant. I mean, that play you highlighted where there was no movement, no screen setting, I was like, oh my God, here we go. But sometimes for Julius, there's not a lot of guys that can stop him. I mean, we saw that against LeBron in that Lakers playoff series where it's like, if he just puts his head down and gets to the rim and pumps, he can either just get to the line or he'll find a clever pass to someone cutting to the rim. So again, Julius Randle played a good basketball game. I just didn't realize in the moment, but those free throws were big. And then for them to just put pressure on OKC, a team that does foul a lot, and maybe the whistle was a little more generous because the coach got ejected. But that's a style in clutch time that I prefer. Like I prefer putting the onus on the officials, making the other team like kind of foul you. And in a night where they missed 14 free throws, and you were there, I wasn't, but man, did Brent Barry let the listeners know that the Wolves were shit at the free throw line, and Grady finally had to be like, hey man, chill out. Also great to have Grady on that call in that game. He did a good job of balancing all the way up until the cash when you just could feel it coming out of him. But yeah, I thought it was important to get Julius back out there because they needed it. But again, I think you said it well. When it works, it's smart. And when it doesn't work, you're an idiot.
Right.
And I just think that's got to be a fine line for coaches to try to figure out in the moment. And I think that's sometimes why Finch after the game is like, the clarity kicks in. He's like, yeah, I should have done that. But you need a little more of that in game, right? To close some of the gaps in this clutch time stuff.
It's funny, when Britt and I recorded on Thursday, we talked about this a little bit, and I mentioned specifically how Rudy hasn't complained about this at all to us.
Oh yeah, that was big. Yep.
In the media, about kind of getting pulled at the end of games often. So I asked him about it last night. I don't have this clip, and maybe we'll play it later in the week or next week when we go with Jace. But it was the first time where he was like, I don't want to come out in those spots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he said, I think I can help on both sides of the floor. I think I phrased it like, for offensive reasons or whatever. I do think Rudy is about winning above all else. I think he's just played really well offensively for the last 2 weeks. And so maybe 3 weeks ago when they were closing a game with Nas and Julius, even in his head, like privately, he was like, okay, this is probably the better thing for the offense right here. I think Rudy is rightfully feeling himself a little bit offensively of late, which is a crazy sentence to say, but like I do. I keep going back to best field goal percentage of his career this season. And we've gotten into a diversity of ways he's impacting offense, probably the most diverse offensive player that he's been in his career. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's moreover just a good thing that you do have multiple options here. I'm going to be tracking kind of, what's the mood of this when you're, if you are Julius, if you are Rudy, and you are the one pulled out of a game to close it, and the result doesn't, go in your favor. I think it's important if and when that happens for them or not. Throw Nas in there as well, to look at the broader sample of all of it and remember that it worked in this game here. But yeah, it's I get it, man. I'd be pissed if I was one of them too, and I was coming out of the game and I was knowing who I am and what I can do, right? And not be out there in that position. But it worked. I noted that. From the game too.
And it sounds like we're on the payroll here, but this is why coaching is so hard. Because back to the Zapruder film last night, that Ant awesome 3-point highlight is led from at 53 seconds. Rudy is subbed back in the game for Nas. Julius misses the second free throw. It's credited to Dante DiVincenzo for the rebound, but it's Rudy's tip that leads to the extra possession, which leads to, essentially the game-winning three. So when Rudy's number was called upon, he got the tip that led to the winning shot. Well, you remember the Clippers game? Nas Reed was the dude who had those 2 tips to save the possession on a missed free throw or on a missed shot that led to an extra possession. And then ironically, Nas caught the ball in the corner to win the game. But
right.
And, I'm not trying to tie this. I would love for this pod we just don't talk about the young guys, even though Rob deserves some credit. But it kind of flows back into this coaching mentality of like, whatever your role is or when your number's called, just go out there and make winning plays. And when it was Nas against the Clippers, he made winning plays. And last night when you put Rudy back in, although he wasn't credited for it, and I think that's just a weird schism in how we track things. Like,
it doesn't matter if it's credited. He tapped the ball out, and if they just,
it was his rebound, basically.
Defensive rebound.
Like, yeah. And it led to the shot that Ant made that, again, kind of won the game. So, yeah, I think that's a fine line for them to have to figure out. I think the scariest line, obviously when you have Nas and Julius out there to close a game, that is offense. And then when you have one of those two with Rudy, it's a little more balanced. But I do get a little scared when it's just Julius and Nas, because I think Nas has just completely found himself again after those first couple tough weeks. But there's still times where Nas is getting cooked defensively, and I prefer him out there with Rudy Gobert. But I thought we started this pod with the Chris Finch ejection. Micah Nori, you got to be ready when your number is called too. And I thought he was the guy, along with his assistants, kind of pulling the strings late in the game. And I thought they did a really good job of finding the right guys to have on the court at the right time.
I don't know who leads Timberwolves world in self-deprecation more between Micah Nori and Kyle Theige.
Well, but we're both real funny, and that's why we keep getting paid. So I joked about the young guys, but unless you have something else on that, like no Jalen Clark.
Oh, let's do the SGA bait shop. Yeah.
You start then. You start.
Today's show is brought to you by Skims. Skims obviously has an expansive lineup in the women's clothing space, but they've really expanded their product to the men's side of things, specifically men's underwear. And I've said this before, but my favorite thing about Skims is that it is a type of boxer brief that both works for going to the gym and also just works for everyday life. I have the stretch 5-inch boxer briefs, and they work functionally just kind of like compression shorts I would wear back in the day when I played basketball, or for when I go on runs, but these ones are significantly more comfortable. I think that's what's unique about them is they can be, you could wear one pair to the gym and you can wear another pair after the gym because they are built for both. Like I said, the 5-inch stretch boxer briefs are my personal favorite, but they also have cotton briefs amongst other styles. I think you should try and find a pair that works for you. Be more comfortable. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores and let them know we sent you. After you place your order, you can select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you are looking for the perfect gift this season, the Skims holiday shop is now open at skims.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Storyworth Memoirs, and we're excited to have Storyworth back as a holiday season gift option for your parents or your loved ones. I think if you're around my age, this is a great gift to give to your parents. The idea behind Storyworth is uncovering stories you didn't know about your loved one. This is how it works. Each week, Storyworth emails a loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to choose. What were your favorite toys as a child? What's something you're most proud of? And all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story. After a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. Photos are printed in color in the book, and it will be a treasure your loved one and you will be able to share and revisit for generations. Customers love Storyworth. They've printed over 1 million books and have preserved 35 million family stories since their founding 13 years ago. They also have 48,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. I use Storyworth, and I think you should too. Give your loved ones a unique keepsake you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth Memoirs. Right now, save $10 or more during their holiday sale when you go to storyworth.com/DaneMoore. That's storyworth.com/DaneMoore to save $10 or more on your order. Yeah, well, Jalen Clark ties into that. I don't really know where you're going. I just thought it stood out to me in the first quarter.
Okay.
That Ant subs out before the first quarter's over. He normally plays the entirety, right? We know what Ant's rotation is. Everyone kind of, this is a meticulous thing. He plays the whole first quarter, comes back in after about 5 minutes in the second quarter, and copy paste that for the second half. That's been his rotation for years. So Ant subs out, I think it was like 8 minutes into the first quarter. And, I write it down. I'm like, okay, maybe like minutes restriction or something like that. He's coming back from the injury. But then the first quarter closes, and I'm looking at the box score. I'm like, oh, Jaden McDaniels played all 12 minutes. Jaden does not normally play the entirety of the first quarter. So what that was they wanted Jaden to be out there for the entirety of the minutes that Shea was on the floor. Shea does the Ant shifts thing, right? He does the whole first quarter, comes back in midway through the second, copy pasted for the second half. So that's when Jaden McDaniels played in this game, which made sense because they didn't have Jalen Clark. They didn't have a second guy to be able to throw at Shea, or that they didn't want to throw at Shea. Now, I think the interesting and profitable ripple effect of this is now Ant is back in to start the second quarter and to start the fourth quarter, right? That's normally when he's sitting. So now Ant is out there in the non-Shea minutes, right? When Shea is resting for the first 6 minutes of the second quarter, the Wolves win those minutes by 4, in part due to Ant being out there and it not being like Shannon or Clark or even McDaniels. And then in the fourth quarter, the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, while Shea is resting, Ant is back out there, and the Wolves win those minutes by 6. So again, I guess keep talking about good coaching, but whatever you think, like that, I think was a good tactical move given the personnel that the Wolves did have or did not have in this matchup, playing without Jalen Clark, who was out for this game with an illness, and I thought that made a big difference in this game. I asked Nori about Ant and Jaden's roles in this game, specifically to the Shea matchup.
You changed your rotation, so Jaden was out there with all of his minutes, kind of in place of Ant, and then so Ant was out there when Shea wasn't. What went into that? Why did that work?
I think the one thing we have is multiple guys that can guard Shea. The one thing that hurt us a little bit was no Jalen Clark tonight, and and Ant coming back from the foot and having to take take on the load at the offensive end, just trying to. And it also kind of filtered into the fact where we could also stagger Julius and Ant a little bit, so we get another ball handler against this team with the pressure.
End of that. I guess I cut that clip short, but that was the point of that there. I think no Jalen Clark kind of pushed them into this, and I think it actually really worked for profit in at least last night specifically.
You were saying that Ant typically plays the whole first quarter, right? Like in a traditional sense. It was funny last night because obviously Grady's doing the national call, but he knows the inner workings of this team. It was like 5 minutes in and Grady was like, yeah, I think Ant might be on a little minutes restriction or they're going to switch up his rotation a little bit, according to Chris Finch. And then like 10 seconds later, Chris Finch was ejected. I was like, well, I wonder if that plan changes now, if everyone still knows what the plan is. But yeah, I the young guys, whatever, Jalen Clark is the best defender of the three. And I thought last night he was missed, but they knew he wasn't going to be available because of that illness. So they basically tried to, like you said, pair, a little bit of a shutdown corner mentality in football. Like if Shea's out there, Jaden's out there, right? And you sometimes see that like against Jokic, which with an opposing team's center, if Jokic is on the court, we got to have our biggest guy out there to defend him. And Jaden was, I think, ironically like a -5. Because Shea,
he's playing Shea's out there the whole time. I mean, Shea was a +5. That's not that bad.
No, I'm not criticizing that my kid, but it just in the moment, it's like that was a really good little tactical thing and is a good sign of good coaching because without Jalen Clark, I mean, obviously Ant defended Shea multiple times down the stretch, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if Ant. You can expend that much energy early in games. I think that's what you call upon Jaden for, some guy off the bench. And without Jalen Clark in that one, who, if healthy, I think would have had a good 15, 16-minute role to spare Jaden a little bit. But without a man, they really have like one on-ball defender that they trust because it's not going to be Dante.
And shout out to him. Didn't get in foul trouble.
Yep.
Right? Did he finish with 2 fouls? I remember I'm looking at my notes here, picked up his second foul with 2:43, left in the game.
Fouls.
I mean,
yeah,
that was huge because if Jaden picks up 2 in the first quarter or if he has to come out at any point during the game due to foul trouble, which would have been reasonable against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, then this whole plan breaks up to what Michael was just saying. And now Ant has to guard him. And now you don't have Ant out there and it just would have messed it all up. Like you go look at the stat line and see that SGA had 35 points in this game, but it was not at his normal efficiency. And, they sought a lot of switches. I'm not saying that Jaden guarded him for all 26 of his shot attempts, but he was the primary defender the entire night on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and picked up 2 fouls the entirety of the night. So, shout out low key, I think a big part of this game was Jaden being able to defend him that long without fouling.
I'm using field goal percentage here, so cut me some slack. But he shot 46.
I know I can do it. He was 12 of 26 from the field. He was 3 of 9 from 3, right?
Yep.
So
3 for 7. 3 for 7 from 3. Okay. But he shot 46% from the field last night, which was the worst performance by him in over a month. The last time he shot less than that was 38% against the Portland Trailblazers about a month ago, and they lost that game too. So, I mean, you look at Shea's box score, and it's like he shot 65% from the field and had 38 points. Like, he is so efficient that it is kind of like that classic cliche of you're not going to stop him, you're just trying to slow him down. And I thought Jaden did an incredible job last night, pretty much on an island, slowing him down and making him work. And, sometimes it's hit or miss with Jaden, right? Like, he's obviously one of the best defenders in the league, but the younger, quicker guards, I mean, Shai himself has got Jaden into a lot of foul trouble historically in the past. So I think he kind of went under the radar last night, Jaden's performance, but a huge game from him in a night that they were missing one of their, most trusted perimeter guys in Jalen Clark.
Yep. Last thing I got down is let's talk about spark plugs in this game. I wrote down Bones
Speaking
Highland.
of good defense, Rob Dillingham. Let's go.
Just net neutral. That's what we're going to start calling him. I have him down. Bones Highland, DiVincenzo, and Rob Dillingham, all as spark plugs in this game at different times in different ways. And I thought in periods of the game that needed it. We've had a ton of games this season where it's been a predominantly bench group and it's been multiple of the young guys out there. And it just stayed flat. It just stayed flat until the, more starters came back into the game. I thought Dante had numerous little pockets of bursts of that. And you expect that a little bit more from him than you do for Bones and Dillingham, but I think you needed every one of those from Dante. Bones I looked down at one point at the end of the second quarter, he'd played not even 6 minutes and he was the Wolves' leading scorer. And it was like the end of the second quarter. That was huge. That's what they need him to be. They need him to be an offensive spark and to fight, right? And to fight defensively. He's not a net neutral defender either, Bones Highland. But like Rob does, you need him to throw himself into that. And I thought Bones did that, injected pace into the game opportunistically. And then Rob, yeah, you look at the stat sheet and you see 0 points, but you also do see six rebounds on there. And you saw him, if you split the box score up until the fourth quarter, he had some minutes in the fourth quarter there as well. So, shout out to Rob, I think in that spot too. I asked Nori a separate question. And he unpromptedly brought up Rob Dillingham. Play that clip.
And to that point, you talk about the rotations. I know Rob didn't score, but he's plus 10 tonight with 6 rebounds and 3 assists, and just getting himself downhill. And it was good to see him respond as well with those minutes that he had in the fourth, going back in there.
I think Mike Nori is a coach who, or on the staff, his role as one of the second highest coach, on the pecking order. Part of his role is to inject confidence and to inspire confidence. And I think some people could kind of put that together from interviews and stuff like that of what his personality is. But behind the scenes too, he's when Finch has to be the stern bad cop, which this team needs often. Mike is the guy who I give Mike a credit is conscientious about the impact of rhythm and confidence. And I think that's going through his mind in that answer right there too, of like, Rob does deserve credit for this game. I'm going to make sure that he gets it and inspire, or at least a morsel of confidence in him there too. So I thought that was all interesting, but yeah, Dillingham deserved it in that game. Probably his 0 points, crazy, but maybe it's crazy to say with 0 points that it might be one of his most impactful games, but that was a huge game that when Rob was on the floor, the Wolves won by 10 minutes, and it didn't feel like one of those fluky, plus 10, plus minus is stupid sort of things. Like the Wolves played well when Rob Dillingham was out there, including in the fourth quarter.
We'll go inverse here, but for Rob, a career high 6 rebounds. Again, he didn't score, and again, I know that's like, okay, he had 6 rebounds, but it's like, I do think he found or is finding more and more ways when he is on the court to make winning plays. I know I've never seen you look at me like you did when I called him a net neutral defender. But the highlight for him of that game and of this season, he came into the league as a scorer, but he just did enough. I mean, I'm wrong in the sense of he's not an ISO defender, but he just is Malik Beasley spirit fingers in terms of action and hands.
Sure.
And he gets that what's credited as a block on Shea in transition. The Wolves are up 2, saves the ball to Dante, sprints down court, catches it when he's cutting, and then finds that perfect lob to Rudy, which I think led to an OKC timeout and got the crowd going. All that other stuff, I think, when you talk to people, is what the coaching staff is trying to be like, hey,
100%.
I know you're a hooper, right? Like, I know Britt compared him to hot sauce, but it's like, to be a winning player.
No,
on
that
a
was
team-
Bones.
Oh, Bones. Okay, we'll get to Bones.
Yeah.
But to, Rob, they need all that other stuff. I'm not. He didn't score, but I'm not super concerned about that. I feel like the kid scored his whole life, and maybe when the confidence starts to come by being better at all the other stuff, he'll naturally, he can get that kind of free throw line jumper off whenever he wants. He just doesn't make it. But if that could become a little part of his arsenal and it makes the defender step up and then he can get by him, whatever. But I thought that little sequence, the block, the save, the assist to Rudy was a really good play. The Dante stuff, again, team best plus 12. After the Warriors game, I trolled a little bit and I was like, stop putting them in your fake trades. And then, people are like, well, you got to trade good players to get good players. Find other good players to trade because he's not a perfect player. But, as when you this, talking to people behind the scenes in the front office, like building rosters right now in 2025 in the second apron era in this new CBA isn't just about talent. It is about how much you make. And Dante making $11 million, that's why you and I talk behind the scenes about the Kobe White stuff. It's like $11 million this year and $11 million next year. That's a steal for what that guy does. I mean, you wake up this morning and again, Dante DiVincenzo leads this team in net rating and plus minus and all that stuff that he's a winning player. He also is the only player, I said this 2 weeks ago, that will take a charge. And last night he tried to take one, and I think that should have been called, but whatever. And then Bones, I think it's just going to be interesting when Mike Conley is healthy. And I have a take, but you saw the bad of Bones last night on that possession when he couldn't get the ball across half court and got stripped. And it's like, okay, maybe he's not a trusted guy to bring the ball up. And then the next possession hits an FU3 and then does the little wiggle. He's a really good shooter. And I don't know if he's a better 3-point shooter than Mike. I know that's always kind of been your stance of like, well, Mike has this skill and maybe he does, but again, last night he was 4 for 6. He has to just be a continued part of this rotation. And I don't have the answer to at full strength with Jalen Clark and Mike Conley. How do you make it all work? Especially now that Rob Dillingham's making winning plays, but I don't know how you put Bones Highland back in the bottle because off the bench, he has just continued to give them not only production, hitting all these threes, but I do think just the natural swagger and pace that he plays with helps get the other guys involved. I don't know if he's a pass first point guard, but he's definitely a guy that's looking to get his teammates involved.
Just while you were talking there, as you were moving through the three guys, I just wrote down a few things. To the Rob point on defense, as I said when we talked earlier this week, great hands defensively.
Yep.
And that's what that play was, and that's where it starts. That's a great place to start defensively when you are at a size disadvantage. You are an awful defender like Kobe White if you are undersized and do not play with defensive activity. Mm-hmm. Rob is undersized and going to be significantly disadvantaged in that way for the entirety of his career, but it can be scraped back with intention and hands are a skill. Like the other, we do the Kentucky thing comparison all the time with him and Reed Shepherd, and that is a Reed Shepherd thing too. And that was a thing coming out of the draft. Like there's going to be limitations to Reed Shepherd, but if you watch him play and you see the activity of his hands at Kentucky and some of the steal numbers and deflection numbers and stuff like that, like that's a real thing that pushes you back there. Rob has talked about prior to coming to the NBA, like literally never being asked by a coach to do anything on defense other than be on that side of the floor. That is being hammered home to him every single day of that being an important thing. And Rob is applying that and has really applied that for the entire time he's been on the floor. Like I'm sure Rob Dillingham has significant frustrations with what his first 100 games in a Timberwolves uniform has been like. But have you once seen, despite the play overall not being good, have you ever seen him get pouty or lethargic on the floor in the limited minutes he's got? No, that dude is putting in the effort there, and like the physical effort of it, the mental stuff, he's clearly like fighting himself in his mind and hesitating in ways, and that's presenting itself as a significant issue with I think his finishing at the rim, because when you are like that small, he just has to be so fast to be able to finish at the rim, which he is, but with a little bit of hesitation, he slowed down, and now like half the shots that he takes in the paint are not only missed, they're blocked. Like that
Mhm.
one when he tagged from the left baseline last night, like that's got to be a layup, and it's you got to finish that, and it got blocked there. I do think I hold out belief in Rob and the speed and the idea that you can develop more of a finishing package even as a small player. Like I still think that those things can and will come from Rob Dillingham, but there are limitations at this point right now. But shout out to the hands. The hands are for sure a good thing and a meaningful thing there. To the Dante point and the money, I hear what you're saying. I would just note that like you call that contract a steal. It's a steal of a trade asset then too. It does go both ways. And if you do get to the point, which I don't think I'm at, and I don't think you're at either, that you need to make need to make that trade to, give up a DiVincenzo and a Dillingham or a DiVincenzo and a Shannon to get a higher overall player. I don't feel like they have to do that, but teams are going to be attracted by that contract that he's on for these next 2 seasons, and the idea that they'll have him internally have his bird rights and be able to sign him to another contract. That's why the Knicks want him. That's why all these teams, whatever you see the aggregation things, Dante DiVincenzo's name's going to be on there. That's why, because he's a steal and he is an asset in this sort of way. It doesn't mean you definitely shouldn't trade. In my opinion, definitely shouldn't trade him or definitely should trade him. It's just one can't be true and the other isn't, right? I think the case for committing to Dante having grown over the last maybe 9 months is I think he gets it. I think he gets what the Timberwolves want to do, how they want to play. And I think that has linearly progressed over the course of time. And Dante is starting to strike me as kind of in a similar way to like Kyle Anderson did, as an extension of Finch, as Mike Conley did, as an extension of Finch's ethos, as Nickeil Alexander-Walker did, as an extension. And that is important when you have a team who is fighting their way through to pair their identity with their style. Dante is going to help that process come to fruition there. So I'm generally with there too. And if any time it should hurt on the trade machine to press that button to put him into a trade, even if you're getting back somebody else there that's better than him in return. For Bones Highland versus Mike Conley in the 3-point shooting, I think there's a distinction to be made between off the dribble shooting and catch and shoot shooting. Bones is at this stage a significantly better off the dribble 3-point shooter, and that he can create his own 3-point shot, I think, a lot by himself at a far higher level than Mike Conley can. I think just in terms of like pure shooter stuff, catch and shoot, I think Mike Conley is still elite in the NBA context, provided he's mentally engaged and understanding and those sort of things. So I think with Bones and Mike, like, yeah, I don't know what that's going to look like. And I think there's cases, to be made both ways, though Bones is making a pretty strong case that what he brings from a pace standpoint specifically might put him ahead of Mike. I'm just saying it's nice that if you got to dust off the 38-year-old to play him, you're going to get a guy who can still hit catch and shoot threes at a mid 40s clip. That matters. And in that way, he's better than Bones Highland, and defensively he's better than Bones Highland too, even if he's smaller, just from a off-ball defender and in those sort of things. So, I guess that's just adding my personal context, but I think those things are all in there. Point being, though, last night you got good from all three of those guys, and you got sparks that this team needed. I don't know. I mean, specifically Dante. I think they needed those, and they lose this game for sure if you don't get multiple of those sparks from Dante DiVincenzo. Today's show is brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company, and we know there is a chunk of you out there who are trying to get a home improvement project done this winter. And we would love it if you made your home improvement company your answer for that project. Right now, they're offering buy 2 windows, get 2 windows free deal on triple pane windows that come with a lifetime warranty and are installed by certified professionals. Your home improvement company also specializes in transforming outdated bathrooms, and they're offering 30% off on bathroom remodels this month. The bathroom renovations are also done by certified local professionals and backed with a lifetime warranty. But those aren't the only projects you can get done by them. Any home improvement project that you have, your home improvement company can help you with that. And they offer great financing deals as well that require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2027. If you've had something you've been thinking about and you know you're going to need to outsource it to someone, we would love it if you at least contacted your home improvement company by calling 866-777-YHIC or by going to yourhomeimprovementco.com. Your home improvement company, where it's your home made better.
And I'm not saying Dante DiVincenzo is untouchable in a trade, but to me,
I didn't think you were
at that contract level. I mean, if people are going to keep throwing all the advanced analytics into arguments and discussions, the dude who makes $11 million leading an 18-10 team in net rating is a pretty big deal. So does this team need a little more offense? Do they need a little more ball handling? Have they solved the point guard position? What is the depth behind Rudy? All that stuff. I get all that stuff. I'm just saying sometimes just having winning players matter. Yeah. And you listed guys who were winning players, Kyle Anderson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and they left. And now this team is searching for more winning players. And they do have one who makes less than the mid-level exception, who, again, I'm a big Naz Reid guy, but is far more consistent than Naz Reid at half the price. And if you take Dante out of a trade machine, I understand, right? Then you got to throw someone else in. Also, I'm being completely honest, that was such a fun game last night. This has been such a fun pod. You said Terrence Shannon Jr.'s name. I don't remember him playing last night, and the box score said he played. And that one is just a little cold water on the fun Friday night at Target Center, because that one to me is Jalen Clark does cool stuff, and Rob Dillingham has been doing more cool stuff, and Bones Highland's on a partially non-guaranteed. But man, if they could find a way to get something from Terrence Shannon Jr., who I watched all 48 minutes last night, and I watched the first half, I don't remember him checking into the game. And that sucks.
It was for 3 minutes. It was for 3 minutes in the first half. I remember.
And
that.
It's not, I mean, Micah Nori was making that decision. He just doesn't give him anything right now. And he doesn't have a big contract being the 28th pick in a draft. So they're going to have to find ways to kind of boost that kid's confidence as well. Again, the same age, played almost the same amount of minutes since. I can't believe Terrence Shannon Jr., Bones Highland, and Anthony Edwards all went to college in the fall of 2019. Like, they're all in kind of the same age bracket. And they've all kind of gone on very different development paths. So fun game. You got anything on that?
No, I just very different development path. Maybe laughed at it. No, I'm good on that. I was the actual last thing I had written down is I just wanted to get your thoughts on the return of Kevin Garnett.
Timberwolves as an organization undefeated since Kevin Garnett became a team ambassador. Hell of a stat that I made up because they're 1-0. It's cool. I mean, it's cool, right? I know I get I'm a super fan and all that stuff. I don't always love that, but I have been rooting for this team my whole life. And I wouldn't be, if you like the content I do, I wouldn't be doing this stuff these days if it wasn't for falling in love with Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. And it was all because of Kevin Garnett. And he was a big part of my childhood. He's still a big part of, me and my dad watching games together. And then it just does suck for a state that doesn't have a ton of success on the men's side in terms of championships or memorable moments. He had a lot of them. And then for him to kind of disappear for 2 decades and then to see him get his jersey retired and win a title in another city, like, it does just kind of feel like that long relationship you had when now they're in love and having kids with someone else, and it hurts. So I know that it was, we've had the new ownership group on here many times, and like, it was a big priority for them. And I think they kind of understand how much Kevin Garnett means to this city and this state and this fan base more than maybe the previous owner did. But it was a lot of work to get him back, and I'm excited. And I think that jersey retirement will happen sometime next season. I do find it funny that they made sure to put in the press release or the promotion of all of it that it was an off-court relationship, because I think back in the day, Kevin Garnett would have loved to have had an on-court in terms of player personnel and maybe being in a front office role. I think he's going to be more of a team ambassador, right? There's going to be content, and he's going to be at some games, and he's going to be throwing shirts and towels, and maybe he'll step over to the practice facility and show Johan Berenger a move or two. But closure is really big. And I think this is the first step towards real closure. And the last couple of years, this team has eliminated a lot of ghosts and demons in the closet by making the Western Conference Finals and winning 50 games back-to-back years. But without his number in the rafters, a section of the rafters at Target Center that's very empty, I just don't think you could ever fully move forward. And I think this fan base is so appreciative that he's coming back. And it'll be a really exciting new chapter for this organization moving forward.
I know you know this, but just to add some more color, like this has been something that has been in the work for years.
Yeah.
And a process. And I I think Mark and Alex and their whole team listened, I mean, to us to some extent, but to many other people too. That like, no, this you got to do this.
I sent some texts. I'll just be honest. I sent some texts like, we got to get that going. So
yeah. I thought one other KG adjacent thing to the actual roster that was cool is talking to Rudy Gobert in the locker room, who's like, he's a couple years younger than us, but he's in our same age bubble. And he was talking about he was like, I was 18 years old playing in Chalet, and I would watch Kevin Garnett hype videos like before my games, and I was like, me too, dude. Like I think I'm one of those views on there too. Like, that was a thing, and I don't know. I mean, you phrased it all well with your dad and the connection, and that being like an initial inflection point to you and fandom and basketball in general. And I mean, for me, it was like a connection to my friends, Kevin Garnett, connected us over the Timberwolves. And I obviously, like, the Timberwolves wouldn't have been as good or ever won or all those things without the presence of Kevin Garnett and drafting him in 1995 or whatever. But I legitimately think I wouldn't be friends with or as close of friends with some of my best friends if it weren't for the presence of Kevin Garnett.
I don't know if we'd be friends, because I don't know if I'd be doing this. My first article I ever did and wrote was on Brandon Rush. I wasn't dying to write about him. I thought he was the perfect 3-and-D guy, and then he never took threes and never played. But I got into this because, again, black and green complement one another very well on the color scale. But the tree jerseys are cool this year because Kevin Garnett wore them, right? And for this isn't, we mentioned Alex Rodriguez, like the Yankees have so many good players that are all on plaques. This organization doesn't. They have Kevin Garnett.
They got Brandon Rush.
Well, they have Kevin Garnett and then just a long gap. And now they have Anthony Edwards. And, I'd be remiss if I don't remember that video clip of like, hey, Kevin Garnett spending a week in Milwaukee tutelage for Giannis, right? And he hated Glenn Taylor so much that he would never come back here. And it's like, I don't know what moves he can teach Anthony Edwards, but there's that Sprite commercial, which gives you feels if you're a fan of like those two just being in a car chatting, right? And I would love to hear those two just on record, not unfiltered, no blurs of how they would talk about a basketball game. But I think it's cool to have him back in the mix. It'll bring a lot of new energy. And this fan base, again, I've always said, like, the ROI that this fan base has is the lowest of all fan bases in all sports because they continue to invest and they've gotten very little over 2 decades. But I think they're starting to see a little bit more of that. And it'll be really exciting to get that jersey. Sucks that it has to happen after the Celtics jersey retirement, but it is what it is. But the closure of having 21 up in the rafters, a guy that meant so much to this organization for such a long period of time, it is a major credit to the ownership group and all the people behind the scenes. Because like you said, this was not this was not an easy one to get done.
Last thing, I think it's gonna be cool for the players too. They don't know Kevin Garnett, and they don't get it. Like, and honest, and like Finch doesn't really get it. I mean, we did media numerous times since this announcement was there, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, Kevin Garnett, he's good. MVP, like, sweet. Like, they don't understand the degree of the cultural touchstone that he was, which is fine. I mean, how would they? And they're also probably like, you guys are kind of obsessed with this. This is weird. But I was also talking to Nas in the locker room before the game last night, and I was like, have you met him before? He's like, no, I've never even met him before. Like, I was like, not even at like a camp or anything like that before. We're just sort of talking about him as a player. And I was like, you gotta watch him stuff. Like, this dude was a real psycho, you know? And like, in a good way, obviously. I said that. I was like, in a good way. But it's just interesting to me. And part of it is, you know, Nas is not in my age bubble, you know, and so he just kind of missed all of that. How old would have Nas Reed been in 2004 when KG won MVP? Like 4 years old, you know, 5 years old. Maybe. Yeah. So I don't know. I just like I was around when KG connected with Cat and Wig and Levine. I wasn't around for Levine, but Cat and Wig, and like for those guys, it was such an experience to just like even be around him. And you know, like Carl says, everything is the coolest thing ever. But like Wiggins thought it was like cool too. I don't know. I was just thinking about this last night. I'm like, man, that's gonna be sweet that like, you know, KG's gonna have some connection to like Terrence Shannon Jr., like both Chicago guys, or Rob Dillingham or whatever. Like, I think it's good that he's not involved in basketball operations specifically. But I think there's going to be power in that connection, and maybe get some of the players and coaches who find it kind of annoying when any of us reference the past, to actually have something to connect it to. You know, in their heads, they just go, the Timberwolves sucked before I was here. And they're not really wrong.
Correct.
But in the late 90s and early 2000s, that you know, that wasn't true. And frankly, man, like the Timberwolves probably currently reside in Minnesota because that time happened, and the role that Kevin Garnett played in it. And to that end, yeah, it's defined my life. Like, if I don't know what I would be doing if the Minnesota Timberwolves were not the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it'll be cool to come. And
this might be a hot take, but I actually firmly believe this. But Chris Finch takes a lot of heat, and obviously Tim Conley takes a lot of heat at times. And then obviously you never really love your ownership group, but I know those three individuals or groups have good relationships with the now best player on the team, Anthony Edwards. But when I found out about that news, like, this was the first time I actually thought in my heart of hearts that this Anthony Edwards could be a one-team guy. And I think that'll be a big role for Kevin Garnett. And we'll see what winning matters, right? Like, if this team becomes a 30-52 team, I don't know how many games Kevin Garnett's going to show up to courtside. But I think Kevin Garnett does want to be back here on his terms. And I think his relationship with Anthony Edwards might surpass anyone else's relationship. And if he can keep him around here, and we did 40 minutes on how close maybe now Ant might be to MVP, or what he needs to do to get to that MVP level. Well, Kevin Garnett won an MVP in Minnesota. And if Ant's going to do it, he'll have, I mean, imagine that moment in that Suns-Wolves series where Anthony Edwards is chirping back at Durant. Imagine if the camera pans to Kevin Garnett sitting courtside, and he is, I know I'm not supposed to swear as much, but like, he is motherfucking Kevin Durant. Like, that would have been a movie. So a cool moment of closure for the fan base, a cool moment for this organization, and hopefully something that isn't just, you know, I don't know, lipstick on a pig. Like, hopefully it's something that's very impactful behind the scenes and in the community, because you said it and I said it, like, this has been a part of our childhood. This is still, Kevin Garnett resonates in Soda, and for him to be coming back is pretty cool. So
absolutely. Yeah, this was fun, my man. Appreciate you making it happen on a Saturday. For listeners, yeah, the next one will be Monday with Jace. The Wolves will have played the Milwaukee Bucks by then, and hopefully not what was it, Kyle? Swallowed an ice scraper?
Yeah,
avoid that?
there was a game there was earlier last season. They won this big game, and then the next opponent was the Nets, and they were 16-point favorites. I just remember thinking like this, that they just had this huge win. And it's going to feel like a snowball to the face or a paintball to the face. And it's like, now you have this huge win after what was the worst loss of the season. And it's like, okay, Kyle Kuzma's coming to town on Sunday and he's going to drop 35. But no, they cleansed their palate. And again, the schedule does, albeit the Bucks, and there's a Nets game mixed in coming up, but they have some really important matchups against the NBA Cup champs and then the Denver Nuggets on Christmas. And, you know, back to that Kevin Garnett stuff a little bit, like, I think fans have always wanted to watch their favorite team play on Christmas, and to have the final game on Christmas against the closest thing this team has to a rival, because they've both beat each other in Denver. That's going to be a really good basketball game. So I'm excited for the upcoming schedule.
And I think that's going to be the next time that you and I do an episode
on Christmas.
No. After the Christmas. I mean, I think we're going to. I think we talked about that, right? A couple days after Christmas, we'll take some time.
I'm just trying to plan my
around there.
Wine I can drink. Yeah, no, that So you're back on Monday. I'm excited for that.
Yep. We'll do episodes on Monday and Tuesday, and then kind of take the rest of the week off for Christmas. And then I think, this time next weekend, Kyle and I will reconnect to talk about whatever does happen in that in that Wolves Nuggets game on Christmas Day. I'm looking forward to it. But until Monday morning with Jace Frederick. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah.